So recently there's been quite a large spate of celebrities, quote celebrities, going out of their way to say quite crude things on Twitter to the current President of the United States. And I don't just mean Kathy Griffin, who to this day, even after that well-known incident with that pig's head that resembled Donald Trump, is still obsessing over him, all the while unironically tweeting out a picture talking about people being obsessed with her. But she is totally obsessed with Trump and people keep calling her out on it. It's quite amusing, but the recent spate of abuse Donald Trump has been receiving has all come from people who have said remarkably intolerant things, some of whom have been called out, others not so much. And I want to present them to you because I think this just highlights how far some will go. And it's not to say the other side is innocent. Certainly we know for a fact a number of conservatives were quite cruel when the Obamas were in office, and I don't think they paid so much attention to what Obama did, which was jack shit, really. I know I'm a limey bastard, but just from watching it, Obama did fuck all, and Obamacare isn't as magical as you keep telling me. Now, those that have been quite cruel in regards to what they have said about Donald Trump have extended this, in some instances, to his family, and this is where a line has been crossed. I know some have used it as a grand point in context with the separation of children from families after illegally entering the country, a policy that was introduced in 1994 and wasn't even banned by any of the subsequent administrations. Granted, Trump has signed an executive order, but the goalposts have now been shifted, so either way he still loses, even when he's doing something good. Now, the most well-known tweet that was sent to Donald Trump that showcased a certain level of intolerance was by Pete Fonda, who, as many of you know, wrote, "We should rip Baron Trump from his mother's arms and put him in a cage with pedophiles and see if Mother will stand up against the giant asshole she is married to. 90 million people in the streets on the same weekend in the country. Fuck." He since deleted this after Donald Trump himself called him out on it, and he got a mountain of abuse, and rightly so. I'm so lucky I got this tweet early though, because honestly, the number of retweets it got pretty astronomical. There are certain lines you don't cross, and I know you're trying to make a valid point about the illegal immigrant problem, but going out of your way to introduce Donald Trump's son into an argument that didn't need it to be made is just bad optics. In fact, all of this comes down to bad optics, with those who oppose Donald Trump not looking very good when they could hammer him on really good points. The illegal immigrant issue of separating the children from the adults was abhorrent, I'll agree, but you didn't need to attack him. You should have addressed your Congress and should have addressed the legislative arm of the government. After all, they are the ones that legislate this, not him. While some would argue the policy falls in line with his more nationalist tendencies, he sure as hell did not introduce this. But that doesn't matter to a lot of people who don't support him and see something negative and think, we need to enact the 25th right now. We need to get him out. Pete Fonda, I didn't even know who you were prior to this tweet, although you do look like Jack Nicholson, so maybe that's how I know who you are. Now, I guess. But you are famous, apparently. The next tweet that got my attention was one by Tom Arnold, who quote retweeted Judd Apatow, where he said, "Way past sad and all in for these kids with Judd Apatow, Fox News, already hates me. On a plane to New York. Next is protesting Barron's private school as well as James and Lachlan Murdoch's kids. This is what I can do to end the abuse of these children. We're going to make you uncomfortable." Again, another line crossed. This guy wasn't long ago shitting on Roseanne, even though Roseanne was kind of right. That woman did look a lot like that ape. It's uncanny. I know a lot of people said it was racist. I don't get how it was racist, because she looked like that ape. Skin tone really didn't make a difference. But then again, Roseanne's been tweeting absolute insanity for years, so it was inevitable she'd get caught out eventually. Why not build her up just so you can knock her down? And he, the ex-husband, did a fantastic job shitting all over her. But this, what he has suggested, again crosses a line. Now, if memory serves, I believe most of the family of Trump get a detail, a security detail of sorts. So not only is your idea bogus, but we know you won't actually do it. You're posturing in the vain hope that people will just be like, "Yeah, Tom, rock on, go and harass a child." I'm sure that puts you on par with creepy stalkers at this point. And it's not like you've done much of a job in backing down on this. It's actually quite sad. Another thing he also said was that while he'd like to protest Trump's kids, he'd like to do it where they work. at Hooters. Because he's a classy man. I have no objection to them saying this. I just want to be clear here. Pete Fonda, Tom Arnold, and the other person we're going to address in a moment can say whatever they want about Donald Trump and Donald Trump's children. Of course they can. But they are now actively inciting harassment of a child. There are lines. We all have them. It's a moral compass thing. And this is the kind of line that no matter how hard you try, if you cross it, James Cameron himself couldn't pull you back over it. That joke's going to be wasted on anyone that hasn't seen South Park. I hope you understand this. People do not go out of their way to harass children because it makes you, the supposedly tolerant one, look like an inane fuckstick. You're not even worthy of being called an oik at this point. And while a lot of people will say, oh, well, Tom Arnold's a funny man, he was just joking like Pete Fonda, totally joking like Kathy Griffin. When you also say, also Melania takes him to school, we want to have a word with her. If we see babies tomorrow, we're going to Kushner's kids' school. Don Jr.'s kids are already working at Hooters, so we'll protest there for lunch. You're kind of going to get yourself into a hole that you'll probably not get out of. You're going to look as ridiculous as that TJ Miller and every other anti-Trump supporter in Hollywood. When I was doing research for this, pulling up tweets of people saying stupid shit at Trump that was violently related, some of the most popular ones were Lena Dunham. Imagine my shock. She still hasn't moved to Canada yet. I'd like her to honour her word, along with all the other celebrities. Now the final tweet was Nora Loreto, who retweeted a tweet by Melania Trump, which simply said, off with all of their heads. I know it's a joke about the French Revolution, I get it, but seriously. With the current goings-on of Antifa and ICE and doxings, any kind of violence being encouraged towards officials and politicians is not just bad optics, but it is setting yourself up to the inevitable investigation that will happen to you because you have made it a point to do something kind of stupid and in poor taste, which is something I don't think a number of you seem to get. I find this quite fascinating, that people are so divided over politics that they are blinded to their own bias. When it happens to someone they like, they're happy to call it out. But when it's someone they don't like, they see no problem in hurling that same kind of abuse at the person they don't like, going so far and so low as to introduce family members that have nothing to do with the person's policies, which is something you don't really argue against. A number of you do not argue against. I trawled through Tom Arnold's Twitter, trawled through Kathy Griffin's, and Pete Fonda's. You don't address the policy at all. You jump on the moral hysteria bandwagons, and you fail miserably at addressing the actual concern. If you were actually interested in politics and expressing a dissenting view, you would at least and openly concede that previous presidents did a far worse job than Donald Trump. Look at the number of missiles dropped by each of the previous 3 presidents. Look at the number of families separated by previous presidents. It's pretty high, and nobody was complaining when it was Obama or Clinton. Just gonna leave that there, really. In my country, politicians have been making it a thing where they want to protect themselves on social media, which they could easily do by protecting their tweets so no one can retweet them, and of course blocking people that hurl abuse at them, but they don't seem to want to do that. They want to legislate it, so that instead of people just using the facilities at hand, people can be prosecuted for being rude to them. If this idea ever got mentioned in the States, it would be struck down because of the first. Of course, you're lucky, but don't be surprised if you using the first has a consequence. A lot of which comes down to irrelevance because most normal people have forgotten who most of you are already. Some of you going so far as to beg people to buy your tickets to your comedy shows because nobody's going. Anyway, I hope everyone has a lovely Wednesday, and thank you all for listening.
Oh, goddowns.
Imagine my shock